The Halo series has some great opening missions. The Pillar of Autumn in Halo Combat Evolved, Cairo Station in Halo 2, and even Dawn in Halo 4 and Warship Gbraakon in Halo Infinite, but none marks the start of a sadder story than Winter Contingency in Halo Reach. It introduces you to Noble 6 and the rest of Noble Team, and ushers in the beginning of the Covenant's invasion of the colony world, and in this video I'm going to take a look at it in more detail. Halo Reach begins with a few scenes that are technically part of a prologue chapter rather than Winter Contingency itself. However, I'm going to include them regardless as they're marvellous. After the camera pans across the planet, now burnt to a crisp, the focus is placed squarely on Noble 6's helmet, lying broken atop the desolate wasteland. These visuals, used to set the stage, are of course taken from events at the end of the game, and they do a good job of setting the tone for what follows. Similar shots of Six's helmet are also used to bookend the whole experience, with Halsey's ending monologue spoken against scenes of a revitalised Reach.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough. For you had already passed the torch. And because of you, we found Halo, unlocked its secrets, shattered our enemy's resolve. Our victory, your victory, was so close. I wish you could have lived to see it.
Six's helmet no longer suggests failure as it does during the game's opening, but instead acts as a symbol of renewed hope thanks to his and the rest of Noble Team's efforts. It's a really lovely way to top and tail the campaign. We then transition to Noble 6 himself on his merry way to meet the rest of Noble Team as the date and time appears in the bottom right corner of the screen. I really like the inclusion of both the date and time in principle. Unlike the original trilogy where something similar wasn't particularly necessary, during Reach it makes a lot of sense. Not only does it make proceedings during this one-off tale feel much more grounded, but it also serves to demonstrate just how much happened in little more than a month. However, what I would have liked to have seen with each is an extra line telling me how much time had passed on each occasion. This may only be an issue for me. I do sometimes miss the little details in games, especially during a first playthrough, but during certain moments I think it would really help build a clearer picture of how things have progressed. A great example of this is the time which passes between Long Night of Solace and Exodus. Noble Team journey to Farkas Lake on August 14th. You then play through a long, eventful mission, and events then move forward to August 23rd, as Noble 6 arrives on the outskirts of New Alexandria. In between seeing those two pairs of dates and times, quite a while has passed, with the suggestion being that 6 spent 9 days most likely walking to the city. But given how much is packed into the game in between you seeing those dates, you might not catch that at first glance. Having the words 9 days later appear on screen would have really helped drive that home, where I'd guess some, myself included, may not have realised how much time had actually moved forwards. Returning to the mission at hand, there's this great little moment where Kat stops 6 from barging straight into the room, which is followed by introductions to the rest of the team, a briefing, and some cautionary words from Carter.
Not gonna lie to you, Lieutenant. You're stepping into some shoes the rest of the squad would rather leave unfilled. Me, I'm just happy to have Noble back up to full strength. Just one thing, I've seen your file, even the parts the Oni sensors didn't want me to. I'm glad to have your skill set. But we're a team. That lone wolf stuff stays behind. Clear? Got it, sir.
That lone wolf line is extremely important as it sets up Six's entire character arc. Through it, you're made aware that he was previously a man who generally acted alone, which made him being part of a team somewhat unusual, but by the end of the game, he's very much embraced his more collaborative role. Although he does die a lone wolf in the most literal sense, his death was actually the complete opposite. He stayed behind on Reach so that Noble Team's final mission, to get Cortana off the planet, was a success, so humanity had a fighting chance of later winning the war against the Covenant. He may have died alone, but I think it's fair to say his actions right up until his demise proved he was anything but a lone wolf. Setting foot on the sweeping green fields of Visegrad, your first task is to investigate the distress beacon, and there's a detail here I'd never actually noticed before recording the footage for this video. If you keep your eye on Emil, he'll actually jump from quite a height and temporarily lose his shield. Not the most sensible idea when entering a potentially dangerous situation, but definitely in keeping with his character. Winter Contingency then begins the lead up to the big reveal we all know is coming, as the team discovers what looks like plasma burns.
Why are we not seeing explosives residue?
Noble 3, can you confirm any EX residue in the area?
Negative, sir.
Plasma, maybe.
Can't be. Not on reach.
And what follows is a gradual build-up to the Covenant's big reveal as you continue to progress through the area. First, you pass through a destroyed building, then you come across a farmer who says something in the field killed his son, and you're then told by Carter to double time it to your next destination, a nice way of introducing sprint and armor abilities in general in a way which makes sense in-game. Here, things get even tenser as you discover a number of dead bodies and begin hearing alien sounds coming from somewhere nearby, and up to this point, Bungie definitely does a good job of building and maintaining tension. And then, the Covenant just sort of appear, and nobody seems very shocked or distressed at all. The reason the mission is called Winter Contingency is that that's the name of the plan put into action by the UNSC should the Covenant become aware of, or be present on, a human colony world. It's a catastrophic event with possibly dire consequences, yet during this opening skirmish, no one seems surprised. You could argue that by the time Noble Team locates their enemy, they probably have a good idea of what's going on, but still, it would have been nice for there to have been a bit more of a crescendo in light of the considered build-up which precedes the encounter. Maybe instead of the Covenant simply appearing outside, you could walk into the area and be ambushed from all sides, or something else. They'd no doubt know you were on your way, what with all the Falcons flying around, so I would have appreciated there being a bigger set piece built around the reveal. June providing air support and mowing down Banshees from a Falcon is a sight to behold, at least. The enormous area you explore next is a cracker and gives off huge Halo Combat Evolved vibes, specifically from its second mission Halo. It's a large, open, natural environment, and while there are some enemies spread across it, usually in places which help highlight nearby buildings, most of the Covenant you'll take on are bunched within these structures. You can choose exactly how to approach each situation, taking down your foes from afar or going in guns blazing during a wider section that feels like vintage Halo. More often than not, games in the series tend to begin in more cramped surroundings before later opening up, so having a bit of space within which to choose your strategy is a most welcome change. Rescuing the Marines at the end of this first half in particular also feels like it's taken straight from Halo. Granted, you're only saving one group rather than moving between 3 distinct areas, but it's hard not to think of it as the Covenant dropships most prevalent in Combat Evolved loom above you. Where Winter Contingency definitely differs is in its aesthetic, which really sets the tone for Reach as a whole. It is an absolutely gorgeous level. The colour palette is very much a muted one compared to the far brighter stylings of previous games, and combined with the rain falling and the mist billowing around you, it creates a wonderfully moody tone which perfectly matches the sobering situation you find yourself in. And it also aligns well with the rest of the game, which is typically less colourful than the standard Halo fare, something which becomes more and more evident the further you progress, as browns and reds become the more dominant colours to match the destruction taking place across Reach. Combined with music choices during the first half that, other than on one occasion, are rather downbeat, rather moody, and it makes for a very engaging opening 10 minutes or so. Once you've saved the Marines, you hop in a Falcon and head to a nearby relay post.
We're clear.
We're at the relay outpost. Doors locked. Mechanism's been flash fused. I'll dial up my torch, cut a way through. Gonna take some time.
Okay. Word route to your location.
Where you're faced with the best encounter in the mission. It should be noted here that I don't think Winter Contingency ever does anything really special in this regard. It teaches you the basics well enough and gives new players time to get to grips with the basics prior to the fighting beginning, and then presents a larger playground for you to put your skills to the test in, but there's little I would argue that's truly standout. As I say, this is the best of the bunch, as you fight your way inside the outpost while the music ramps up both in terms of tempo and volume before you hold off more waves of invaders while Kat works on the door inside. You also get your hands on the battle rifle, and with the way the area is set up when looking out at it once you've fought your way inside, it almost has this shooting gallery quality to it, which makes it perfect for getting acquainted with the weapon. The best encounter in Winter Contingency is swiftly followed by the best cutscene in the mission. There's just so much to like about it.
Found something.
I'll take that, Six. Not your domain.
Cat snatching whatever it is Six finds out of his hand, the civilian actually saying in Hungarian, "They are still here," which is a reference to the elites which appear moments later, and a nice little detail for those of you who speak fluent Hungarian, and Carter pushing Cat out of the way of a plasma sword just in time.
What's the status? Over!
We've been engaged!
It's a very, very well choreographed scene. I also really like seeing things through Six's eyes during its final moments, as it makes the surprise attack feel more visceral, as it should. The final gameplay section is a very short, fairly uninspiring one. I get that the music, which you can hear in the background now, is meant to encourage you to be aggressive and chase down your ambushers, but it falls a little flat for me as it's really just a set of corridors housing a few Covenant. I really like the track, but for me, it will always be the soundtrack to the beach battle at the start of Long Night of Solace, where I think it works far, far better. Honestly, the back end of the mission is strangely paced. You move from the build-up to the larger area, which is followed by the short encounter outside the outpost and the very short section inside it. Bungie is often so brilliant at mixing the narrow with the open, but towards the end of Winter Contingency, everything feels very segmented, and for me, it feels a tad bitty compared to some of Bungie's finer efforts. Once the Covenant have been well and truly defeated, you're treated to a final cutscene before the mission concludes. Again, it's really well done, and it's really all about George. It's hardly a surprise given what happens during Reach's midpoint that the spotlight is placed on him early on, and it's a doubly sensible decision considering he's a native of the planet himself. The big, burly man with a heart of gold isn't exactly the most original character archetype, but it's executed well here.
Nevim George.
Shada.
Shada. Se Nev. Your accent sounds familiar. Shapron?
Tangari.
Friend of yours?
Father.
Sha'ainalong. I'm sorry.
Why would you be?
The moments between George and Emil are fantastic too.
Big man forgets what he is sometimes.
She just lost her father. She needs a full psychiatric workup.
She's not the only one.
Lock it down, both of you.
And a few moments later, Winter Contingency concludes with these very dramatic final lines.
Barely getting you. What's your situation? Over?
Colonel, this is Noble One. There are no rebels. The Covenant are on Reach. Acknowledge?
Come again, Noble One. Did you say Covenant?
Affirmative. It's the Winter Contingency.
May God help us all.
One of my favourite things about Halo Reach has always been its consistent quality across missions. Unlike other Halo games, which usually have one or two stinkers included, it's a title which maintains a pretty high standard throughout, with there being no levels I'd point to and say, this is a bit rubbish. To me, Winter Contingency is proof of this. It's not an amazing level, and it's probably one of the weaker ones in Reach's campaign, but even so, I still enjoy it whenever I play it. Its opening moments are engaging, it ramps things up smoothly for new players, and it features some great cutscenes, along with an aesthetic that sets it apart from the 3 games in the trilogy which preceded it. And considering it's the first mission in the game, I don't think you can ask for too much more than that. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and Spartans. If you enjoyed it, do consider liking, subscribing and letting me know your thoughts, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon.